Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start today's Audit, Assurance and Risk Committee. So we're going to hand over to Denise to take the roll call.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'll just start with the roll. Alderman Darren Guy. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Here, Denise.
Alderman David Ramsey. Councillor Michaela Boyd. Councillor Sean Carr. Councillor Emmet Doyle. Councillor Stephen Edwards.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Paul Fleming. Councillor Patricia Logue. Councillor Philip McKinney. Councillor Maeve O'Neill.
Here.
Councillor Martin Riley.
Here.
Councillor Lillian Sino Barr. Thanks, members. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Logue has arrived in the chamber as well. You're very welcome, Patricia. Members, the next item of the agenda is the broadcasting statement, so I'm going to read this. I would like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A the Council's privacy notice is available on the Council website, www.derrystrabane.com. And I see in the chat box, Councillor Doyle has joined the meeting as well. Yes, Emmet, we did call your name, so glad you're able to join us. Items for members is declarations of members' interest. Anybody with a declaration of interest, please pop it into the chat box now, and I'll give that a moment. I'm not seeing any declarations of interest coming forward for today. If they do arise as the meeting goes on, just pop them into the chat box at that stage. And then item 5 is chairperson's business. Members, this is my first meeting as chair of this committee, so I'm looking forward to working with all of you as elected members, all of the officer team in the 12 months ahead, and also with my vice chair, Councillor Maeve O'Neill. And just to wish everyone well for the 12 months ahead, in keeping with the same process of dealing with items through chairperson's business. If people do have something that's urgent that needs to be raised, then please let me know at least 24 hours in advance so that we can prepare ourselves for the discussion. And also in relation to pop-up items and so on. These committees, as we all know, are bi-monthly and they're usually heavy with detailed papers to go through. So any pop-up motions, etc., unless it's really urgent or really pressing, I would suggest be tabled at full council so that they can be debated in the usual way. Members, so happy enough to move on. I don't have any other chairperson's business today, and just to move to item 6, which is matters arising from the open minutes of Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee held on Monday the 16th of May. So we'll take those for accuracy first, pages 1 to 6. Any point of accuracy that people wish to raise? And then any matters arising that people will want to raise. And if not, can I have a proposer for the minutes, please, and a seconder? Okay, thanks. Councillor Logue proposing and a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair, Councillor Edwards.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, online. Okay, members, that moves us on to item 7, which is the annual governance statement. I'm going to hand over to Denise.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your endorsement for the Council's annual governance statement for the financial year 21-22, which is attached there at Appendix A. Members will be aware that the Council's governance framework comprises the systems and processes and cultures and values by which the Council is directed and controlled, and its activities through which it accounts to, engages with and leads the community. It enables the Council to monitor the achievement of its strategic objectives and to consider whether those objectives have led to the delivery of appropriate, cost-effective services. As part of the process of preparing each year's annual governance statement, the Chief Executive, Directors and Heads of Service and Lead Officers are asked to consider the most significant governance issues that require action and disclosure. The most significant governance issues that have been identified for 21-22 are detailed in the table below. It highlights the governance issues, the controls in place and the proposed actions being taken to deal with the issue. As members will be aware, the Northern Ireland Audit Office will commence their audit in July. They will audit the governance statement along with the governance issues, and the final governance statement will then be presented to members again in September after the audit is completed and when the Audit Office provides assurance on the governance issues. I'm happy to take any members' questions or comments on any of that. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Denise. And members, this is the annual statement, so it is there for your opportunity to question Denise and any of the officer team in relation to it. I'm happy to open it up to the floor if anyone has any questions in relation to it at this stage. And if not, are members happy to make a proposal to accept the annual statement? Proposed by, do you want to speak to it, Patricia? No, are you happy just to propose it? Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Logue. And again, a seconder, please.
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Doyle. Okay, members, thank you. That moves us to item 8, which is the Code of Governance. James.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of Derry City and Strabane District Council's Code of Governance for the financial year 21-22. The SIP Solace Delivering Good Governance in Local Government, a framework, was published in 2016 and represents best practice for developing and maintaining a local code of governance and making adopted practice open and explicit. Derry City and Strabane District Council is committed to the principles of good governance and has developed a local code of governance as a public statement of that commitment. The Council's local code of governance is supported by the systems, processes and documents that determine and control the way in which the Council manages its affairs. There are no implications arising from this report, and it is recommended that members approve the Council's Code of Governance for 21-22. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, James. Okay, open to members again for any questions of James or on the report. And if not, can I have a proposal for it, please? Go ahead, Patricia.
I'll propose again, Chair, and just before I go any further, just to wish you well in your year ahead. So thank you, James, for the report.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Seconder, please.
Chair, I'm content to second it, Alderman Kerrigan, and just as well, I'll just wish you well for you and your deputy, Councillor O'Neill, well in the year ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Keith. I appreciate your comments as well. Okay, members, thank you. That leads us on to the annual audit report, item 9. Deborah's taking this one.
Hi, the purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of the Council's annual audit opinion for financial year 2021-2022, attached at Appendix D. In accordance with the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, Professional Standards and Guidance and the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards 2013, which were last updated in August 2017, Chief Audit Executive must deliver an annual internal audit opinion and report that can be used by the organisation to inform its governance statement. The annual internal audit opinion must conclude on the overall adequacy and effectiveness of the organisation's framework of governance, risk management and control. The annual report must incorporate the opinion, a summary of the work that supports the opinion, and a statement of conformance with the public sector internal audit standards and the results of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Programme. On the basis of the work carried out, internal audit can provide a satisfactory level of assurance that the Council's control environment is adequate and effective. That is, that satisfactory assurance can be obtained from the governance systems and procedures in place. This is a positive assessment of the Council's control environment and reflects favourably on the organisation's governance arrangements. This opinion is based upon the work of the internal audit section over the 21-22 financial year. Although the audit plan was not completed in full for 21-22, the internal audit manager is satisfied that a significant amount of assurance work was carried out and the associated reports were provided to committee on the high risk areas facing the organisation. It was another challenging year for the internal audit section. The internal audit section is a small section in Council, and the objective of the section has been, with the finite resources available, to provide members of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee with the assurances that they require in a timely manner on the management of the key current corporate risks. In any large and complex organisation, it is unlikely that the internal audit plan will remain unchanged over the course of a year, and it's never the priority of internal audit to complete the audit plan at the expense of its relevance. The internal audit section will continue to be pragmatic in its approach and will continue to provide progress updates on the completion of future plans to committee. There are no implications as a result of this work, and it's recommended that members approve the annual audit report for Derry City and Strabane District Council 21-22 attached to Appendix D. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Deborah, for that. I see a comment in from Brona, so I'll come to you, Brona, and then Councillor Carr has joined us, so you're very welcome, Sean, to today's meeting. Brona, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. My video's just giving me a little bit of difficulty. I just wanted to wish you and your Vice Chair every success in the incoming year, and also to say well done to the internal audit team. What a great job they're doing despite the difficult circumstances, and always with such an upbeat and positive attitude. So I just want to get that on record, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Thank you, Brona. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
Chair, like others, I also want to wish you well for the year ahead, along with your Vice Chair, Councillor O'Neill. Chair, just have a question. It's something that stood out to me on this report on page 34. It says that that the controls within council are satisfactory. I'm just wondering, Chair, what are the sort of levels? Are there levels above satisfactory, and are those sort of, is that the level we're aiming towards? I was just wondering that, Chair. And also as well, I'm wondering, in terms of, do we have external audits as well? And is there also a plan for external audits, Chair? There's my two questions, if officers are able to respond. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Stephen. I'm going to hand back to Deborah.
Yes, satisfactory is the highest level of assurance that the council provide. We have different levels of assurance we can give within each individual audit report. There's different levels with the different risk descriptions attached to those, but satisfactory is the highest level. Thank you.
And then on Stephen's second question in relation to external audit.
Well, external audit undertake financial audits of the organisation. So that would be in relation to the audit of accounts. I think that's what you mean. I think that's my understanding of maybe what you mean, or do you mean internal audits procured externally? I'm not quite sure. Just can I have clarification of the question, maybe?
Yeah, Stephen, are you happy enough with that answer, or do you need to ask or provide more clarification to the question?
No, that's grand, Chair. Yeah, it makes sense that the external audits are looking at financials. So, yep, that makes sense. Thanks for the answer.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Edwards. Can I have a proposer and seconder for item 9 then, please, before we move on to item 10? Sorry, Councillor Logue, go ahead. Propose.
Thank you. No, I just want to ask a few questions, please, Chair. Thank you, Deborah, for the report. And it has been a very challenging few years, but it's good to see that we got a satisfactory rating. However, I would just like to ask, the 2021 plan, is that going to be carried over now 22, 23, and you know, the matters that were on the plan but didn't get done, and for follow-up audits, and also for other areas of audit such as the Alley Theatre, the income collection and the cemeteries audit. Are they going to, they were started, but no, sorry, they haven't been, one was suspended and one was not started. So are they going to be included in this year's plan? Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that, Councillor Logue. James, I think, is going to try and take those.
Yes, the audits should be, the ones that were not completed will be completed as soon as possible. The alley was an issue, I think, because it was closed, and there was an issue, and then there was we started the planning audit, but it was just because of the pandemic, that just we couldn't restart it. But it's our objective to get to those audits as soon as possible.
I have no power now in proposing this item. Thank you.
Thanks for that, everyone. So proposed by Councillor Logue. Is there a seconder, please?
It is seconded, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Okay, members, that moves us on then to item 10. So back to Deborah.
The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of the internal audit section's self-assessment against the public sector internal audit standards, which were attached to Appendix E. The public sector internal audit standards were introduced in 2013 and replaced the Code of Practice for Internal Audit and Local Government in the UK 2006. Public sector internal audit standards are mandatory for all local authorities and apply across the whole of the public sector. The internal audit section is required on an annual basis to carry out a self-assessment against the public sector internal audit standards. The overall result of the self-assessment exercise for 21-22 is that the Council's internal audit section has a high level of compliance with the public sector internal audit standards. The self-assessment against the public sector internal audit standards for the Council's internal audit section for 21-22 is attached at Appendix C for members' review and comments. There are no implications as a result of this work. And again, it's recommended that members approve the internal audit section's self-assessment against the public sector internal audit standards. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Okay, members, as before, any questions of Deborah or the officer team in relation to this report? And if not, can I have a proposal, please? Okay, thank you, Councillor Lowe, proposing it. So, seconder, please.
Seconded, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Doyle. Okay, item 11 then is the COVID support and community groups revised terms of reference. Denise.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your comments on the revised terms of reference to carry out independent audits on the two areas. Firstly, on the range of projects and interventions put in place to assist communities over the COVID-19 pandemic. And secondly, on the governance and recruitment procedures in all community groups that are in receipt of council funding over the past 5 years. Members will recall at the full council meeting back in May 2021, there was 2 motions passed, and they're detailed there just for members' information. At the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee here in January 2022, members were advised that a procurement exercise was completed and no tender submissions were received. And as a result of this, members recommended that a task and finish working group be set up to consider and revise the scope of the terms of reference. So the task and finish working group was set up when we met initially on the 3rd of March, and at that stage officers were tasked to review and update the initial terms of reference, taking into account a number of points, including the requirement to set a defined number of days for completion of the work, the necessity to restrict the scope of the audit and use sampling to ensure that the audit work can be completed within a predetermined number of days, and the requirement to ensure that the scope of the work includes information the Council is legally entitled to request from the community organisations. Officers presented a revised terms of reference to members at the next task and finish working group on the 12th of May, and at this meeting members recommended that the revised terms of reference be presented to this meeting today for discussion and agreement on the best way forward. So it's recommended, members, that you note the contents of the report and the work done to date, and subject to your views on recommendation 5.1, if we wish to proceed with this process, it's recommended that the revised terms of reference is approved and a procurement exercise is commenced to appoint a consultant or consultants to complete this work. Happy to take comments on. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Denise. Again, open this up to the floor for any comments that people have in relation to it, and to thank the officer team for the work that's been done to get us to this stage. So open to the floor. And if there's no speakers, do we have a proposal to accept the recommendation then?
Chair.
Councillor Doyle, yep, go ahead, Emmet.
Thank you, Chair, and likewise from other speakers, best of luck and good wishes to yourself and your deputy throughout the year. Denise, thanks for the report. One of the things that I'm conscious of with regards to going back out to tender again is that we'll end up back in this position again next time round. Are we planning on doing any pre-market engagement prior to the tender going out, or do we have any sort of contacts in the kind of consultancy services that we looked at previously? If we had any contact with them about the terms of reference, or are we planning to do that going forward to ensure we get someone to undertake the tender? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Emmet, for that question. Also, Councillor Maeve O'Neill. Go ahead, Maeve.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, technology is not working for me today. And just good luck as well in your year of chair, and look forward to working alongside you as Deputy Chair. Thank you, Denise, for the report. It's just for in the community audit piece. It says in the paper that there was no final recommendation around only including organisations that received over £20,000 of council funding in any individual year. So, in order to make that recommendation, I'm happy to propose that here today as well, just to, limit the scope of that audit work. So would you recommend that for, if that's what people want? Because I think, like, anytime that's been discussed, the general consensus has been that people are in favour of limiting that scope. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor O'Neill. I see Alderman Guy has given his apologies for being late. You're very welcome, Darren, to today's meeting. I don't see any other indicated speakers, so I'm going to go back to... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Patricia. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise, and I have been part of the working group regarding these matters. Now, while the allegations of that included in the motion, we all know what they are. I really don't see how those, I suppose, allegations and views could be fully met with just auditing groups over £20,000. And also within the paper, we're looking at a sample. So I suppose taking into account council's finances at the minute, and I suppose the stress that this has caused, and as well as, for all the community groups out there, I just want to, get this matter put to bed. But I do hope that when these audits are done, that it will satisfy all the concerns out there. I'm sure that they won't find anything, but I don't want to be coming back in another 6 months' time and saying, well, he's only done groups over £20,000 and he's only done a sample. It's not fair on the community groups out there who are working very, very hard, especially over the COVID pandemic, to have this sort of views and allegations set against them with no real evidence whatsoever. So I do hope that when these audits are done, and I'm sure that there will be no major findings, that this will enable those councillors who feel that the need to do this work on top of all the audits that they're already doing, that they will be able to satisfy their constituents. Look, the work was done and there was no findings, and move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Okay, members, I don't have any other indicated speakers. If I'm right, I think Councillor O'Neill was happy to propose it when she got response to some of the questions. So I'm going to bring in some officers in relation to answering the points that have been raised, and then we'll go back for a proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, members, for your comments and your questions. I'll just go through them individually here. So in terms of Councillor Doyle, where you've said, we may go back out, we may receive no submissions again. Yeah, that is a risk. We don't know. I'm happy to do some pre-market engagement in relation to that if members approve the terms of reference, and that's the direction that we're given today. That's not a problem, and we can do that to try and stoke the market the best way we can. In terms of Councillor O'Neill's comments in relation to no final recommendation over 20,000. So I suppose at one of our previous committees, it was agreed that we would restrict the scope to those that was over 20,000. But as Councillor Logue has stated, we did have a discussion at the working group that was then to remove that limit of the 20,000 and to select a sample of all community groups. But again, so that's why it wasn't included in the revised terms of reference. But again, happy to take members' recommendations on that. Either way, you know, we'll include it in the terms of reference. And Councillor Logue, don't think you had any questions. It was more your comments, just. But thank you for your comments. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Denise. Okay, members, open it up to the floor for any other comments or indications to propose the item. I think Councillor O'Neill had proposed it, if I'm not mistaken, when she was speaking. Okay, so a couple of comments in the chat box here. So Councillor Doyle has indicated he wishes to speak. Go ahead, Emmet.
Thank you again, Chair. And again, whilst we're dealing with two very specific and two very different motions that have brought us to this point, the one with regards to the COVID-19 support was mine, and obviously I'm quite focused on that one. In terms, Denise, of what it is that we're trying to get to the bottom of here in terms of, I know that the motion that come forward from Sean is about recruitment and things like that, and that's very different to what I had originally focused on. In terms of the effectiveness of those programs, do we know, for example, just by way of interest, if the Department for Communities are doing any kind of specific assessment work on the effectiveness of those COVID-19 intervention programs? Because originally, for maybe those members who weren't on committee at the time, it was around the secondary interventions that I had spoken about with regards to referrals to external agencies. Do we know, I'm sure some of the community groups involved are doing their own assessments in terms of how they were given work and how effective the overall programme were at that point. But do we know if the Department for Communities has undertaken any kind of assessment work on the effectiveness of those COVID-19 interventions during that period for their own internal audit work that might assist us in doing that? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Doyle. And I suppose, no, we don't know if they're doing any specific assessments on the effectiveness of the programmes. As you know, we did contact the Department for Communities whenever the motion went through, and we received a letter back from them to say they had assurance from their own internal audit team and their own systems and processes. But we can certainly go back and find out if they're doing any specific assessments. Councillor Doyle, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that might be useful, just because I think at the time when this did come through committee previously, I had asked about that DFC involvement. So yeah, I think that might be useful. Okay, Councillor O'Neill has put in the chat box there for those that are able to see it, that she wishes to propose to limit the scope of the audit to organisations in receipt of funding over 20,000 in any individual year. So Councillor O'Neill, I take it you're happy from what you've written in the chat box, you're happy to propose the item with that caveat, is that right? Can you just verbalise that, please?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. And then if people are content to have the understanding about what Councillor O'Neill is proposing, is there a seconder for that? Okay, members, I'm not having a seconder for that at this stage.
Sorry, Chair, a wee bit IT difficulty there. I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Doyle. Okay, so that's proposed that we go ahead with the recommendations and we limit the scope of the audit to organisations in receipt of funding of over 20,000 in any individual year, as put forward by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Anybody against that recommendation, let me know now, and if not, we'll take that as approved. Okay, members, I'm going to take that as passed, so thank you for that. That moves us on to item 12, which is Audit Assurance and Risk Committee Self-Assessment. James.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement for a self-assessment exercise of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee to be completed for the period April 22 to March 23 The local government auditor recommends that the council periodically undertake a self-assessment of the council's Assurance Audit and Risk Committee. The self-assessment is based on the SIPFA Audit Committee's practical guidance for local authorities self-assessment checklist. While completion of the SIPFA self-assessment checklist is not a requirement, it is included as a tool within the SIPFA guidance, and hence the checklist represents good practice with regard to audit committees and the standards to which the council should aspire. Moreover, it is important that the effectiveness of the audit committee is periodically reviewed. It is proposed that all Assurance Audit and Risk Committee members, including the independent advisor, the local government auditor, chief executive, directors, lead finance officer, lead assurance officer, assurance manager and internal audit manager carry out an assessment of the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee by completing a self-assessment checklist. The completed checklist should be returned to the internal audit manager by the end of August 22. The internal audit manager will then collate and summarise the results and present a summary of the report of the key findings and recommendations, if applicable, at a future meeting of the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee. We're hoping that hopefully that will be in the September's meeting. The self-assessment checklist will be emailed to the list of recipients detailed above before the end of June 22. And myself, Denise and Deborah will be available to answer any questions that members have and provide any guidance that we can to members on the completion of the questionnaire if needed. There are no implications arising from this report. It is recommended that members endorse the self-assessment exercise of the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee to be completed for the period April 22 to March 23. Thank you.
Okay, James, thank you very much for that. I see in the chat box that Councillor Edwards is happy to propose it. Has anybody any questions, or can we have a seconder, please? And thanks, Councillor Lowe. Happy to second it as well. So, okay, members, no other indicated speakers on that item. So thank you, James, for that. Members, that moves us to item 13 and 14, which are down as open for information. So I'm going to treat them as for information unless anybody wishes to speak to them. Then please let me know. And if not, happy to conclude today's business at that point. So thank you everyone for joining online. Go back out and enjoy the lovely sunshine that's arrived, and look forward, as I said at the start of the meeting, to working with everyone over the course of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.